So thank you for giving me your time on a Friday afternoon, Friday morning, lunchtime, whenever it is. Yes, I'm Steve Traps. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to do a mixture of slides, which for a Scrum facilitator is quite rare because we never normally do any training or presenting with slides. It tends to be just drawing, but some of the concepts might just need it. And I'm also going to be switching my camera down, so I'm going to be talking through things and stuff like that, just the way I explain things. So let me firstly share my screen. Right, so uh, hopefully that's coming through. Yeah, I think so. Hopefully you're seeing Reimagining Scrum, the title. Yeah, thumbs
Yep.
up. Cool, good.
Yep.
So, sorry, I forgot you were all on mute. Sorry, I was thinking everybody just switched off now that they know this. So, look, these are my own thoughts. I have no power over the next revision of the Scrum Guide at all, okay? And in my head, I'm thinking, has he really got no power or is it? But I don't. I haven't. These are my own thoughts. They're not from scrum.org. I know I'm a trainer from scrum.org or Scrum facilitators. A little bit more about me. I'm a dad. I've got two girls. I'm no longer, and actually, as Jamie was saying, he's old. I no longer have any daughters that are teenagers anymore because they all turned into their 20s this weekend, this month. So yeah, it feels really old. And in that, I'm actually a runner and I'm doing the London Marathon again this year because I want to prove a point to myself that I can run a sub 4 hour marathon under sub 4 hour marathon. I failed massively last year, or in true agile speak, we learned from it. And I learned that actually I need to eat more, funnily enough, before I actually hit the wall. And I'm really up for the challenge. So it's just something to strive for. My background is I was a developer. I moved through the various different roles, accountabilities, became a head of technology, but it wasn't really for me. I really enjoy working with teams and coaching people and helping people live in this complex world. So I'm a Scrum trainer, Kanban trainer, and I'm a coach with the ICF as well. So let's click the button. So our goal at Scrum Facilitators, we're based in the Netherlands and the UK and Singapore. We are Scrum trainers, Kanban trainers, but we also go out into industry, practice what we preach. Our goal is to empower individuals and teams working on complex problems to succeed by equipping them with the right knowledge and skills and support. We focus on enhancing productivity, unlocking new possibilities, delving or delivering greater value through real world experience, professional training, and coaching. So when I'm coaching people, I always say people relate more to stories. If you can relate to something, it makes it easy to understand. And stories is a great way of sharing experiences and helping other people understand. So I'm going to share one with you. So start with a story. And funny enough, we were talking about this earlier. Businesses don't care how you deliver. They just want their stuff. Okay. They don't care if you're using Scrum. They don't care if you're using Kanban or Scrumban or Scrum with Kanban or something you've smashed together. A business just wants their stuff so they can give it to a customer and hopefully get paid for it or make an impact on society. They don't care how it lands on their door. They just want it. So there is a problem in the industry today. Businesses don't see the value in how we approach working in environments that have high levels of uncertainty and unpredictability. You see it all around on LinkedIn and social media that Agile is dead, Scrum is dead, Scrum is too prescriptive, or only fools use Scrum as it doesn't give us the business, it doesn't give the business the answers that it craves for. When can I have my stuff? Last month, I was talking to an ex-colleague who works in a delivery team. He told me that they no longer have people in their teams called Scrum Masters or product owners, even though they were a Scrum team. They have teams doing work. He said it seems chaotic, less enthusiastic around the work, less fun around it, but they're getting things done. They've created something that matches something similar to the way that they work. They've used bits of Scrum, they've used bits of XP, they've used bits of Kanban, they've used bits of safe-ish areas, and they've kind of just bolted the things together, and it's mashed and represents the way that they work. Everything still feels crazy and chaotic, but that's to be expected. They're working in a complex way. We're working in a complex world, so it will be. This gave me an insight. We have lost the trust of businesses to deliver as they don't see the value of how it's done. We need an approach that demonstrates the value whilst handling complexity, which takes this complex world that we work in and live in and makes it more manageable. Much like the early explorers of unknown worlds, navigating by compass and sight, maybe we've got some sort of maps. We're going to take this complexity and make it more predictable. Think of it as a GPS in this world that we don't know about. A GPS that's going to give us direction on delivery. Okay? So I've got a proposal to share with you. It allows you to work in an uncertain, complex world that also has risk reduction built into it. In the end, I believe if we can demonstrate the value and the answers, their questions of when will I have my stuff, we can help our customers deliver on their commitments. So that's a story. That's what I believe. Okay. So what we're going to explore with our GPS and maps over the next few minutes is how we can improve Scrum to meet the demands of the next decade. In essence, I'm going to be taking Scrum apart and putting it back together again, hopefully putting it back together while staying true to its true cause. Okay. So let's talk about what Scrum is and what's wrong with it. Okay. I've heard a lot of people say it's too rigid, it's too prescriptive for us. There are too many meetings anyway, and now you're wanting us to do more. You say it's immutable, but isn't it supposed to change? It's an agile way of working. I've read the Scrum Guide and it doesn't tell me how to do things. It's really vague. We don't build software. We can't use Scrum. Our work is too big, too complex to have a done increment at least once a month. We don't have all the skills needed in our team to get it to a done increment. They're in a different department. It doesn't tell me when I can have my stuff. Why do we have to use story points? Why can't you just tell me the time that we're going to have it? We tried it, it didn't work. We can't afford to have a dedicated role as a Scrum Master per team. That would bankrupt us. All Scrum Masters seem to do is arrange meetings and ask people how they seem to be feeling. Seems very strange. I need them working hard. We've got commitments. I need them working hard. We can't have one person deciding the future direction of our product. It needs to be across in the committee. Right? Does it sound familiar, this? Have you come across those things and been thrown back at you? So that's where Scrum is, or how the perception is. So let's talk about adapting Scrum for the next decade. But before we do that, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page of what Scrum is and what it isn't. So I'm just going to switch my camera. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to switch my camera over. So Scrum is a conversational framework. It's minimal but sufficient in its direction of how to do work. And it's purposefully incomplete. It was written in 2010, although Scrum has been around in some form for some years before that. So let me switch my camera over. Let's get this right. And if I could be spotlighted, that'd be fantastic. Oh, I'm spotlighted now. So in a nutshell, remember these 4 numbers for Scrum. Because if you're working in Scrum and someone's saying, oh, you have to do this in Scrum, if it's not part of this, it isn't Scrum. It's a complementary practice. So we have 3 accountabilities. If you haven't read the Scrum Guide since 2020, the word has changed from roles. It's now an accountability. The accountabilities are product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. The development team is no more. It's got rid of that perceived hierarchy that was there in some teams, and it's all a flat hierarchy. We have 3 artifacts. Artifacts are living, constant changing things that are being updated. I think that's what updated means, actually, living, changing things. Product backlog, sprint backlog, and the increment. They're the 3 artifacts. 3 commitments. Now, if you haven't read the Scrum Guide, and you probably have, but if you're new to Scrum or you haven't read it recently, this is a relatively new thing. Commitments exist to reinforce empiricism. using previous experience to help decide what we're going to do next. Okay. They're also a measure of progress. When can I get my stuff? Well, we kind of need these because this is a measure of progress. The three commitments: product goal, a goal that sets over multiple sprints, potentially setting the direction for the team over multiple sprints, the sprint goal, the focus for the team for the duration of the sprint, and the commitment to quality, the definition of done. What does it mean when this team says it's done? It's all understanding. It makes the implicit explicit. And the last thing, 5 events. Okay. You might know them as ceremonies. We were talking about this earlier. They're not never been called ceremonies. They're meetings. We have a sprint, a containing event, contains all the events. We have sprint planning, the daily scrum. We have sprint review and sprint retrospective. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present Scrum to you. 3-3-3-5. I haven't spoken about burn down charts. I haven't spoken about story pointing. I haven't spoken about velocity. I haven't spoken about Jira. Sorry, I didn't mean to extend Jira. I haven't spoken about that. I've spoken about what it is core to Scrum. There are a few things, but we haven't spoken about the Scrum values, what it means to work in a Scrum team or a Scrum environment. What do we hold dear? Focus, openness, courage, commitment, and respect. These are the behaviors that help the team work well together and also outside of the team, the behaviors that we work well together. We also want our teams to be self-managing. And so Scrum talks about the self-managing teams deciding what to do and when. Nobody tells the team what to do. We're empowering people to work in that complex area, complex world. And again, I haven't spoken about maybe some of the things that you thought was Scrum. It's purposefully incomplete to allow for those areas that are just those areas within your organization that are unique to you. It's a framework. Think of it as a Swiss Army knife where you can bolt things in, do things together. So it's to meet your unique situation. But remember, 3-3-3-5. That is Scrum. Okay. If you haven't read the Scrum Guide recently, please read the Scrum Guide. It's the definitive guide. If you're using Scrum or Scrum-like framework, have a read of the rules. So let me switch my camera back over. There we go. Right, so I'm going to share my screen again because I want to talk about what's important. Hold on a minute, I think I'm stopped sharing the wrong thing. Let me share that one. There we go. So I want to talk about what a Scrum Master's doing, okay? So this wheel, come on, that wheel, thank you, comes from Professional Scrum Master course from scrum.org. And it talks about the choices that a Scrum Master could use in their role to meet their accountabilities, okay? So it talks about being a teacher, a mentor, a coach. Make sure people know what Scrum is. Actively taking action or actively doing nothing, depending on the context. Being a facilitator, okay? Making sure that those events that we spoke about earlier are happening, okay? So a Scrum Master, a professional Scrum Master, throughout the course of their day, throughout the course of a conversation, throughout the course of what's needed, will switch between those, okay? So using these choices, it drives the conversation. But before we leave the Scrum Master, I want you to hear this comment. I wish I had made this comment. The Scrum Master is about helping the team to deliver and less about making them happy. Now, that might be a little bit contentious. It might be a little bit, what do you mean make them happy? Well, a happy team does make people deliver. But maybe what people are experiencing is Scrum Masters spending too much time in the facilitation area, in those meeting areas, and making sure that people are happy, and less time focusing on getting to done, helping the team get to done, helping to create an increment of value such that we can deliver for our customer against their commitments. Okay. So a Scrum Master is about helping the team to deliver and less about making them happy. Maybe we've been focusing too much attention in the wrong areas. And that's why businesses think, why should I use Scrum? You're just in a meeting all the time with donuts and coffee and putting stuff on sticky boards. So, what adaptations would I like to see for the next decade? Okay. I would like the ability to answer the when question. When can I have my stuff? I would like to raise the make the value delivered transparent, more transparent than it already is. And Todd and Ryan were on a similar kind of well, on the I think the what's the word the event. There's the word before this one. Go back onto YouTube and watch it. And they were talking about creating boards, dashboards to demonstrate value, demonstrate what's being delivered. Go have a look at that. It's a really powerful, useful video to watch. I'd also like to see the guide talking about increasing transparency around risk, dealing with risk. How do we do that? So coming back to these points, how do we deal with, and I'm just going to move on to the next thing. How do we deal with answering the when question? Well, I'm going to offer you some metrics that you might want to consider. Let me switch the camera over again. There we go. Where have you gone? Oh, my video stopped. That's always annoying when that happens. We cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Ah,
Yeah, sorry about that.
no, don't worry.
I was trying to spotlight you now.
Ah,
Or hit the wrong one.
am I back?
Not yet.
No.
We just see a rather lovely picture of you so far.
Yeah, that was some time ago. That was when I was younger. Had more hair, believe it or not. Yeah, sorry, that's not allowing me to do it.
It won't? That's strange. Here, I'll make you co-host to see if that helps. You should be able just to turn your video back on.
Yeah, it's not. Oh,
Oh.
yes, there we go.
Woohoo!
Okay, sorry about that,
Don't
everyone.
don't worry about it.
So
So,
I'm going to spotlight you. There we go.
no worries. Hey, that's why we do this stuff. So, flow metrics. So, some of you may have come across flow metrics in the past. Some of you may be going, what's he on about? Flow metrics? This is just crazy stuff. So, look, we've got some our workflow. We've got our team here. There you go. There's the team. There's some happy people there. They've got, I always draw people with different head shapes because they've got different skills, and the different head shapes denote they've got different skills. That's all that is about that. So we've got some work to do. I'm putting the work there. We've got some bigger bits of work, that kind of stuff here. And we've got our workflow here. And our workflow, you know, tends to go analysis, dev, test. But hey, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to call it A, Z, and Y, just because. So we have work that comes in here, flows in there, and we get done. Okay. So I've worked with many different Scrum teams that story point work. They allocate some sort of value or number to a piece of work, and they say, when we get that across, we're going to get X amount of story points. Hooray! However, I've also worked with teams that don't do that. They're looking to get the work across as quickly as they can. They're looking to move the work through, and through that, what that enables them to do is to delight their customer by giving them an increment. And there's the increments. So the metrics that I'd like you to consider are WIP. What if we're working on too much work and these people can't work on all the things at once? Actually, I need a bit more work. I've missed it. Let's say that is a bit more work there. We've got 5 items in play. We've only got 4 people. How does that happen? Well, let's limit the work such that actually we put a limit on these columns. Let's do 2, 1, 2 for some strange reason. So by putting a WIP, work in progress, limit on the work, what this encourages is conversation, is focus, and we look at getting these across so that we can bring work through as quickly as possible. Okay. Instead of all the work being in play at once, and we can tell our stakeholders, yes, everything's in action and we're working really well, by focusing on getting the work done, by using WIP limits, we get work done quicker. Okay. So what's the next metric? What I'd like to record is cycle time. How long it takes this piece of work, let's pull this back, how long it takes this piece of work, this single item, to get across there. And when it does, from when it starts to when it ends, we calculate the elapsed time, and we might say that took 3 days. And that's the cycle time for that piece of work. This piece of work looks slightly bigger, so on and so forth. When we get across there, let's say that's 5 days. This piece of work flew across the board 1 day. So we're calculating our cycle time of how long it takes us to get that work across. By reducing WIP, by working with the WIP, that cycle time in theory would reduce because we're focusing all our efforts on getting that work across. Okay. Scrum does not talk about any metrics at all. The only true metric that it kind of hints at is that there should be a done increment at least once during the sprint. At least once. That's the only metric that it's looking at. What I'm proposing is that we use flow metrics such as cycle time to drive a conversation. Let's drive a conversation about how long things have been in play for. If we've got a piece of work, let's say it's this one, and it's been in play for 3 days and it's a 2-week sprint, should we be worried about it? It depends. If it's been in play for 5 days, should we be worried about it? Maybe. If this piece of work has been in play for 1 day, our attention should be to get this one. Oh, I can't put it in there. Let's do it there. Our attention should be on this because this piece of work has been in play for longer. So it drives the conversation around in the daily scrum, moving it away from some of those horrible practices of giving this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm doing today, I have no further questions or impediments, those kinds of stuff, to, hey, which work needs our attention the most? It's this one. Okay. And we get that from work item age. It's aging. It's getting old, a bit like me. So I never thought I'd get all the old jokes, but anyway. So now, if we start calculating and start recording how much work we're getting through to done, we can talk about our throughput. This team delivers X amount of work over each iteration, and we can start recording our throughput, and we can start doing some metric analysis on that such that we can start answering a question. Our SLE, our service level expectation, based on the current workflow. What is the expectation that it will take for this work to flow across the system? If you calculate the cycle, if you record cycle time and you start looking at how the work flows and you're actively managing that work, we can start saying things like 85%, let me stick that right in the middle actually, 85% of the items were completed in X days or less. 85% of the work that we start took 3 days or less. Is that acceptable? Depends on the business. But it moves our conversation away from our backlog has so many points in it to, hey, 85% completed in X days. If you want that, Mr. Stakeholder, there's an 85% chance that you'll get it in X days, in 5 days, 3 days, whatever that is. Okay. So using cycle time, it drives a conversation around the time as opposed to the size. The rest of the business works on time. Now, coming back to throughput, if we're recording our throughput, what we can then start doing is using that value, how much work we get done over a period of time, and using something called Monte Carlo simulation, we can start talking about how predictable our system is. And we can start saying there is an 85% chance of you getting X amount of work done by this date. Are you happy with that risk? No, it needs to be guaranteed. We can't give you guarantees because there's nothing guaranteed in the world. If there was, I'd be doing the lottery every day and I'd be a millionaire. So if I could predict the future, are you happy with a 95% chance and it's going to take this amount of time? Yes. Okay. So what we have is a conversation based on empiricism of what has actually happened versus a gut feel of when we think something will do. And look, let's be honest. Sizing, when we're using story points, is a gut feel of, yeah, I think it's about this time. So flow metrics, have a look at those. So that using those drives a conversation around when we could have something. Okay. Let me switch my camera back and share the screen. Let's just share that one. Okay. So, so when? Now let's move on to, let's move on to the next slide. Come on, next slide, please. Thank you. So using those metrics, cycle time, this is taken from Actionable Agile. I wish I had shares in them, but I don't. This is the metrics that are gathered, enables a conversation. Hey, we've currently got 8 items in progress, work in progress. What's that doing to our cycle time? Is that increasing? Is that decreasing? Our individual items, 85% of them take 18 days or less to get across our system. What's going on? What's the health of our system? Okay. Our Monte Carlo, how many can we get across? There are 9 items or more can be completed in 30 days with a certainty of 85%. So, Mr. Stakeholder, Mrs. Stakeholder, if the 9 items that you are needing by the end of the month, and today's the first month, there's an 85% chance of that getting across there. Are you happy with that? Yes, no, kind of thing. So it drives a different conversation as opposed to starting about saying, oh, the backlog is X in size, 100, and we do 10 story points, therefore it's going to be 10 sprints. Utter tosh. Something it'll just knock that out. That's maths gone loopy. It's not even, you shouldn't even be doing maths on story points. What this enables you to do is have conversations around the when through empiricism of what Scrum is built on transparency, inspection, adaptation, using that to actually decide what decisions you're going to make. Okay. So we change our language from we think to there is a percentage chance of that happening. It demonstrates professionalism. It demonstrates that things are being repeatable and predictability around the system is there. Okay. The creator of story points actually has apologized for ever creating them because they've been misinterpreted. And if you're using story points are great, okay, for driving a conversation. And Scrum is a conversational framework. Story points fall down when you are using them to do maths around estimating and times and things like that. Have the conversation if needs be, but don't do maths on them, okay? So Ron Jeffries, the creator, did actually say, look, they've been misinterpreted, okay? So that's the when aspect. Bringing flow metrics into Scrum, brilliant idea, I think. And I'm talking about Scrum or Scrumban, I'm talking about Scrum with aspects of Kanban, okay? So let's talk about the value, delivering when and what. So evidence-based management, EBM, the Scrum.org initiative, and it's talking about moving away from circumstantial metrics, such as the number of items we got done or the number of story points, those kinds of stuff, or the levels of things, levels of tech debt, things that we can game, to things that we know are true. Okay, so EBM, and this is the official blurb. EBM is a framework that helps people, teams, and organizations make better informed choices to help them achieve their goals by using intentional experimentation and feedback. EBM can help manage, measure, and increase the value, that word, they deliver, or derive from their product delivery. Okay. So it's looking at what's delivered, what's valuable. For example, cycle time, looking at throughput, looking at release stability, looking at our innovation rate, how much we're spending of our money on this. And to go back and talk about Ryan and Todd again, they were talking in their dashboards about how much money we're making, how much money we lost, what's going on here, those kinds of things. If you can equate it to money and you could demonstrate that you are saving money, reducing costs, increasing revenue, happy days, because that's the way the rest of the business works. Okay. Don't have to somehow translate it into story points equates to X amount of pounds or dollars or euros. You know what it's doing because you can see the impact. Have a look at EBM, evidence-based management. It's a really powerful conversation to have with your teams. I would love there to be some sort of reference to EBM within the guide, within the Scrum guide,
Yeah,
moving away from those
there's
circumstantial metrics.
a course on that, right?
Pardon?
There's also a Scrum.org has a course on evidence-based.
Yes.
We have professional agile leadership course
Yeah,
on evidence-based
there's
management.
PALI and the PAL EBM. So yeah, really powerful courses. So I also want to quote Simon Reindl, another Scrum trainer, and his definition of agility, which is where we are all working in. Agility is the ability to respond to change whilst being ruthless on value, with a direct line or a direct impact to the P&L, the profit and loss. Okay? So if we can demonstrate we're being ruthless on value, delivering value sooner and earlier, and this is why we can start winning hearts and minds again, hopefully. So how do we make things more transparent around risk? By changing our language. By instead of using we think it's this, we're talking about there is a chance of X, Y, and Z happening. How do you want to handle that risk, Mrs. Stakeholder? There is an issue. It's going to impact our delivery. It's going to elongate this out. This is the risk that you're taking. Those kinds of things. We've now got empirical evidence of our flow of work, which people can't argue with. They can see it. We change the way that we speak. So we spoke about what and when and how we handle risk. We put it back into the stakeholders' hands. Are you happy with that risk, that level of predictability? If you need it longer, it's going to push it out. If you need it higher, it's going to push it out. And here's the system why. So we can demonstrate consistency. Now, people and teams, I would love it if, gone too far. But anyway, I would love it if we had some guidance on how we work in remote teams. Because Scrum doesn't tell you how to address working in teams. It doesn't even tell you how we should talk to each other. It doesn't tell you anything. It leaves it up to you. It is a framework, and quite rightly with those aspects. But I would love some guidance to be put in, some practices that we could try, building off the community that we've got. Ever since COVID, the remote working or hybrid working, it's just exploded. People are struggling to talk to each other. How do we talk? Those kind of stuff. They're floundering, and that reduces communication and connections and conversations. And when Scrum is a conversational framework, it starts disintegrating. Okay. So, guidance on how to deliver. Guidance on how to work in remote teams would be fantastic. But also, I'd like there to be an added responsibility on the Scrum team on how they want to foster stronger communication and connections within the team. Actually putting that into the Scrum team, making it their responsibility to think about this. I want there to be something where the teams, when they are remote, we come together, we build those bonds, we talk to each other. It's not necessarily about doing work, but we spend time building bonds, getting to know each other, relating, building rapport, and spending quality time together. Okay. Thinking about how we work as a team, the relationships. I would also like there to be clearer guidance around self-managing. In the guide, it says they are self-managing. The team is self-managing, which means that they internally decide who does what, when, and how. It's a big ask for teams when they don't know what it's like. So giving clarity around that, giving help around that, that'd be great, wouldn't it? So what I would like, sounds almost like a manifesto this now. What I would like is the Scrum Guide to stipulate and have guidance around having a clear vision for the team and the product. I'd like clarity around the why we do things so that people, when they're in their remote teams and hybrid teams, understand the why behind something. Make it easier for people to understand. Think of it as a story. I'd like there to be a shared agreement on how we work together in remote teams or hybrid teams, or even actually we're physically together, how we work together and what it means when we say we're done. But hang on a minute, Steve. 99% of this already exists in the guide. So what's going on? Why is it that, from my experience, some of this stuff is just disintegrating as the teams are living in this hybrid world? Do the team feel empowered and not able to fix it? Have they disenfranchised from what's going on? Who could actually help them? Well, that person is the Scrum Master. Instead of facilitating, they're into that coaching space, into that mentoring space, into that curious space, being humble, but being empathetic to where they are. So, how does the Scrum Master evolve? What does a Scrum Master do? Big question. From the guide, the Scrum Master is accountable for establishing the Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. They do this by helping everyone understand Scrum theory, practice, both within Scrum team and organization. The Scrum Master is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness. They do this by enabling the Scrum team to improve its practices within the Scrum framework. Scrum Masters are true leaders who serve the Scrum team and the larger organization. Do you remember this? That's what they should be doing. Scrum Master is about helping the team to deliver and less about making them happy. Become a delivery expert. That's where the ask is. Less on the facilitation, more on the delivery. So Scrum Masters, do they evolve into agile coaches? But an agile coach is just an organizational title, as is a delivery manager, as a Scrum Master. And professional Scrum Masters are agile coaches. They're also experts in delivery. But maybe some Scrum Masters haven't been doing the things that they should have been doing. Scrum Masters may not have been speaking truth to power, telling them how it is, what needs to change, shying away from those conversations, not living by the Scrum values. They're not challenging organizational change. In some organizations, Scrum Masters are viewed as menial dog's bodies, people that organize meetings. They are not true leaders who think about how they're serving and who they're serving. They think about meeting admin, they're following mechanical Scrum. Scrum Masters should be rattling cages, waking organizations up. Scrum Masters should be reminded that we need to fix the dysfunctions in organizations. It's a chance to inspire. Okay. So what do you do if you're not like this? I'd encourage you to gain more experiences outside of the Scrum sphere. Look at Scrum with Kanban, melding two together. Go become a delivery manager for a bit. Experience what it is, what it's like, and come back and be an awesome Scrum Master. Change your language so that you're not switching people off from that have dismissed Scrum and said, oh, we tried it, it didn't never worked. They probably never experienced it as it was intended to be done. That's why they've turned off. But if you talk about Scrum, they're going to switch off. Learn to change your language. Do less of the facilitation and more of the delivery. You're part of the team is accountable for delivery. At the heart of what you do, focus on the Scrum choices, the Scrum Master choices. Align yourself with the message of the Scrum Guide. Be a professional, remain humble, curious, and empathetic to the situation you're in. Learn to explain why. And also move up out of the team and into the organization. 3 levels of Scrum Master. Potentially most people are looking at level 1. They're hidden away from the value they deliver. What we need to be doing is moving into that level 3, moving into managerial positions in which we can influence people, provide that confidence that we've got this, we know what we're doing, we're professional. We don't need the structure that's been put in place or forced upon us. Let's have a process, a framework that deals with complexity. So consider where you are on there and how do you move into the next level. So strategies for moving forward. As a delivery expert, let's maybe not call it Scrum Master anymore. I know, bit radical. As a delivery expert, think probabilistic forecasting over deterministic planning. to answer the when question. Demonstrate value through metrics. Create dashboards to demonstrate the value that is being delivered and the value that you're delivering. It's a lot harder to get rid of somebody if people can say, do you know what? You bring so much value. Refresh the impression of Scrum. Don't even call it Scrum, but just live by its principles and practices. They're really good. And like I said, maybe don't call yourself a Scrum Master for a time being. Call yourself a delivery expert. But move into leadership roles. Roles with influence, roles in which you can help provide the confidence, like I said. For Scrum Guide itself, add guidance around probabilistic forecasting. Add references to the EBM, talking about metrics that we can use to demonstrate that we're delivering value so that people can't easily say, well, you're not doing anything. And I would love it if they specifically put a line in that states the Scrum Master and the product owner are part of the team. They are accountable alongside the developers for the delivery of value. Explicitly calling that out. Many Scrum Masters have stepped away from that. So they need to be doing all the other choices, but focusing on delivery. So how does the story end? Well, that's up to you. We have lost the trust of business. You see people moving away from things, moving away into creating their own framework because they're a special unicorn. We need to demonstrate the value and benefits of working in an empirical way when we work in a complex world where there are more unknowns than knowns. If we get this back, if we get their trust back, it'll be up to the actions that you take. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for coming. Would you be willing to answer some questions that we have in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
So, Ange, you want to find those for us and read those off?
Put me on the spot here. I have been marking them with a question mark. Let me see if I can remember the first one. All right. I think this is the first one. Is it the right mindset and approach not to care about the how and the implementation of work?
Is it the right mindset to not care about the how? I'm curious about that question. I don't think I said that.
Somebody by the name of E asked it. I don't know if they're here, if they feel comfortable sort of expanding upon that.
It was more when you were talking about, this isn't my question, but when you were talking about how the people we're delivering to don't care about how.
Oh, okay. If it's part of your world, I would say that you should care about how we deliver the work. Okay. So I would suppose like how business doesn't care how we deliver the work, and maybe it's that bit. In that essence, they just want their stuff. They see maybe it's transactional. Give me my stuff. Give me my stuff. Give me my stuff. People doing the work should care about how the work is done, and they should be passionate about how the work is done. It's their life. It's the way that things are, they're working in. It's their day to day. But if we're all working in sweatshops, that I would object to that. If I'm delivering value, making an impact to society, how I'm working, that's where I would be. So yes, they should care, but maybe other people that see it don't care. Does that
Hi,
answer?
Steve.
Hi.
Actually, I was the one that asked the question. And I think my comment was like, if we think about it, like the bigger team is the business collaborating with a Scrum team. And I'm seeing this in my practice and folks around where you have stakeholders that really, actually, funny enough, I had somebody tell me this today in a COP where I'm a PO, I don't really care how you do it, I just want value. And that
Yeah.
mindset and that mentality, it's so common and
Yeah. So I
persist.
would say as a product owner, and thanks E for the question, as a product owner, they should care. They're part of the team. And if they're not, as a Scrum Master, I would be curious around why they don't care. Maybe we are not being as efficient and effective as we could be. Maybe we could get more stuff done. I'd be curious around the reason why, and if it's just more transactional, and maybe they don't see themselves as part of the team, part accountable for that delivery. Maybe it's a transactional thing. But I'd be really curious around that why, around the how, if that makes sense. That may not answer your question or solve it, but that's the route I would go down.
Oh, thank you so much.
Good luck. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they are the wrong product owner. You know, they're not passionate. They don't have a vision for the product. They don't, you know, maybe it's that. Maybe they're just in the wrong role. So
Hard to know. Okay, the next question is, how could DoD be different across teams if if Scrum emphasizes at the end of each sprint, we're delivering a potential shippable increment. I'm sorry, I'm totally messing that up.
the definition of done is per product, per increment. So it's a quality around that. It's not per team. The team could be working, you know, I've worked in teams that are working on multiple products at the same time, but they have a definition of done specific to the product, to the increment of value. So it's specific to that. So it shouldn't be the same. Sorry, hang on, scratch that. It's for the product, the increment, the definition of done, not per team. A team can have different levels depending on the maturity of that product, for example. So hopefully that's answered that question.
Hopefully. This next one says, do you think we should also ask the why question for our teams? Why are they delivering this outcome, and how is it relevant to the organizational strategy?
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. First off, I would say to the product owner, hey, product owner, can you just tell the team why we're doing it? What's our vision, the direction, the purpose, the impact we're going to have on a customer, so people can get involved and actually appreciate what it is they're doing. I worked at the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, and when someone explained to me that when we were doing X, it was going to have a direct impact on the wait time in emergency departments, A&E departments, I got it. I mean, I was just changing an API, but I got it. It was like, I understand the why, I can do this, and this is brilliant. I understand the impacts. So if they don't understand the why, I would be wanting them to come and talk to me. And I, as a Scrum Master, was saying, hey, does everybody understand why we're doing this? Yeah, it's because you get paid. Yeah, yeah, okay. Why are we doing it? Who's it for? That kind of stuff is more important. And I'd be putting the product owner out in front of people saying, tell them why. So, and
Yeah,
if they don't
actually,
know, I'd be getting to the product owner and going, hey, product owner, why don't you know this kind of stuff? And let's talk to stakeholders.
as a product manager, actually, I appreciate and love those developers who come to me and really want to understand it better. I feel like the product comes out much more as it was envisioned than, than them just going off on some sort of assumption of what it was. Yeah. Great. Next question is, do you know any hacks to make it easy to see cycle time on Jira items?
There is the control chart in Jira, but I believe that is part of the Kanban board. I'm not a Jira expert. I know I'm a Scrum Master. But I'm not a Jira expert. The two aren't always the same. I know it's part of the control chart, but I also know that it doesn't really report it properly as well.
There were some good comments from others in the group about actionable agile and add-on to Jira, so that's cool.
It does come with a license fee. I think it's $1, or it was $1 per user. But it is really powerful. So
yeah, I think what you're saying, Steve, is that Jira doesn't necessarily report things correctly. It's kind of hard to work with.
Yeah.
And either you do it manually yourself using it, or you use actionable agile, and that seems to sort it out a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done it manually as well, and that's
That's a joy.
Excel is a wonderful thing.
Deep understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I saw that conversation. It was really great to see. Next question is regarding cycle time. Do we want to consider velocity in terms of cycle time per story point rather than cycle time per item?
I would do cycle time per item, working across from when it started to when it's picked up. Otherwise, you're obfuscating story points and simplify your life. Story points are great for a conversational. You know, Jamie, you mark this as a 13. I'm saying it's a 89. You have a different understanding. Let's have a conversation. But from an item of work of flow going across, the cycle time is elapsed time from start to finish, and just do it as a time. It's the way that we work as humans. So please don't try and equate it to something else, but report the cycle time, because then you can talk to your stakeholders and say, look, you're asking us to do more work and it is slowing us down. Look at our cycle time. Look how long it's taking us to do. Before, when you weren't doing this, it's X. Now it's that. So the only thing that's changed is the bigger ask kind of thing. So, and they understand it in time.
Steve, can I add a little bit to that?
Sure.
One thing I find when I'm using the cycle time is there's always a story behind, also like delays and whatnot. So usually when I'm reporting cycle time, I'm also documenting like team member was out sick for a week or
Yeah.
so. So it shows that dip or spike or whatever in the cycle time. So there's always like a background story that goes between it. So when you're doing those, guys, I would like make note of what's going on during that time so you can explain it more in depth.
Yeah. And it use the cycle time scatter plot to say what's high and low, you
Yes.
know, the timing, and then go, hey, brilliant conversation having a retrospective. What's going on here? Ah, that was when Paula was away and she's only got the access to this. Well, why has no one else got access to it? It just
Yep.
brings it up. Or, hey, Tom and Paula were working on this and look, it's taken ages. Oh, sorry, it's taken really quick to fly across the system. What was going on? Oh, that's because we were pair programming. And as Tom was writing, I was doing the user acceptance testing. Hey, that's a great idea. Why don't we do more of that? So.
Feel targeted.
Sorry, it's just because you've got your cameras on. And thank you for having your cameras on.
So I recognize the time. We've gone a little bit over. There are a few more questions. Do you want to stay a little bit longer, or do we want to figure out a different way to get these answered?
I'm happy to stay. So
Okay.
I can stay too.
Yeah, for those of you who want to hear a few follow-up questions, we'll stay maybe another 10 minutes, and we need to get Steve to his family and his supper. And
I've forgotten about that, to be fair. I've got the adrenaline kicked in now. So
okay. Those of you who can't stay, thank you for coming today. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you at our future events. Okay, go for it.
Definitely. All right, next question. If a team prioritizes Kanban flow metrics, why should the team stick to Scrum? Shouldn't they adopt Kanban, which is more inherently focused on flow-based work?
yeah. So Scrum may not be the framework you need. There you go. I've said it. I'm a Scrum trainer, and I've said it may not be the framework you need. However, it is a very good framework for providing discipline and structure and scaffolding. Okay. So having the discipline, structure, of scaffolding of Scrum, or let's call it whatever it's going to be called in the future, with the strategy of flow over the top, the two are married together. It's like, you know, they're coming together, so you'd have both. Okay. But if your situation is, hey, we are too unpredictable, we're working on multiple things, it's a BAU situation, we don't create sprint goals because it's just crazy out there, so we're just doing stuff as it comes in, don't use Scrum. Use Kanban, you know, but use the metrics. You'll still get the same conversations with your stakeholders. So use what is appropriate for you, for your situation. I'm a Scrum enthusiast. I'm not a Scrum evangelist. Okay. So use what's appropriate. I've done both. I love it when they come together though, because you get the best of both worlds.
Steve, can I
So,
just add something to that?
sure.
It's really interesting because having worked with teams and depending on the phase of product development or delivery, I've worked with teams where they've started, as you said, they needed the structure and the clarity with Scrum, then with Kanban,
Yeah.
and then had to drop Scrum because say they wanted to BAU and sort of their context changed, right? And their purpose changed. And so they dropped the Scrum plus Kanban, went into Kanban and deep into Kanban.
Uh-huh.
Then probably reverted back to Scrum or something else. So I think that journey of a team as well should be appreciated, respected, and sort of just to sort of doesn't have to be one or the other, right? It's just
No.
complementing one with another and just
Yeah.
going with what the context and the group of people you're working with also need.
Yeah. Because the business doesn't care how you deliver. They just want their stuff. So if you can, you know, do that. One thing I would say is Kanban doesn't tell you how to do delivery. It doesn't say that you have these accountabilities. It just says you have team members. What's the accountability of a team member? Well, that's up to you. You go sort that stuff out. We're busy doing metrics and things and really sexy stuff. So the nice thing about Scrum is that it tells you, hey, the product owner is accountable for organizing ordering the product backlog. And as long as you have somebody in your organization that's doing that for the team or as part of the team, happy days. You know, working on ordered backlogs, it just makes our life a lot easier. And if you've got a coach, a mentor, a facilitator, and they're not called a Scrum Master, they're called a Jamie, brilliant. It's all about delivery.
I've done
Do
the
what
same
works.
thing, Amani. I've done the ebb and flow. Like Scrum was working for a while, then went in Scrum Ban, and then went Kanban, and we might have to do a next session as Scrum. But I use the same. We still do backlog refinement. We still have our
Yeah.
daily stand-ups. We still, have retros, bring, the empirical information. So it does ebb and flow depending on what's
Yeah.
going on.
And Kanban takes more discipline within the team. It takes more maturity in the team as well, because it's like, oh, we're not going to do planning, or we're not going to do refinement. Oh, okay, what's the worst that could happen? Well, it's like, no, we need to do this. This is like cleaning our bedroom, or cleaning the kitchen or whatever. So it takes more discipline. But then that's when you see mature teams. And I'm not saying Kanban is a more mature team. It's not. It's just the circumstances that they're in.
Yeah, that's why retros are so important, I think, to any
Yeah.
any framework you work on, is making sure that once you've done your increment or you've released something, that's still what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what's so freeing about this conversation. And I'm so glad that we're having this early in the year, because there's a lot of people out there that have strong ideas about the future. And honestly, this is so freeing to me. This is what I believe, is that we shouldn't be, stuck in one type of methodology. We
No.
should be free to ebb and flow and pick what's going to work for the team, because I think that's the theme today, is that management doesn't care. They don't even understand it. And why beat ourselves up about trying to get people to understand and work to the letter of the law, So
I would say, if you are going to do Scrum. But don't, we won't do a retro this week or this sprint because can't be bothered. But it only takes like 10 minutes to check in. Hey, how's everybody? Hey, we're fine. Brilliant. Okay, let's go to the pub. Okay,
Yep.
great. But do it professionally. But if you're not doing it, don't call it Scrum. Call it Ange. Hey, we're doing the Ange framework. Okay, cool. And what does that mean? It means we do the retrospective when we need it. Okay, cool. And that's it. The only
Yeah, I
difference.
think you had brought up agreements earlier in the day too. I think that's important as well, is making sure that you're working towards those agreements and those goals, and it shouldn't matter what the in-between is.
No, not at all.
All right. I guess we could talk about this forever. I'm going to move on to the next question though, and it says, Scrum sideline traditional management roles leading to friction. How could Scrum or Scrum Master role be evolved into integrating middle management into the framework rather than marginalizing them?
Yeah. So, I mean, Scrum doesn't really talk about management. It talks about management of the process, those kinds of stuff. And that's often some of the things that the management would have been doing is now handled in the team. You've got self-managing teams. That doesn't mean there is no need for management. As a Scrum Master, what I've done in the past is say, look, this is the environment we're in. We need some support. We need some help. We need some clarity. We need some influence with stakeholders, with environments. Can you help us? And so you do bring people in close. And think of management as an organizational structure. And what we're trying to do is deliver stuff using Scrum. Two totally different things. However, we all work for the same organization. So let's go have a conversation, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, and say, how can you help us deliver? Because we've got this issue. And it's through that, instead of us and them. And it really annoys me when it's like the business says, and well, we are the business. We just happen to be called the IT or delivery area. You don't talk about marketing as not being part of the business. They just happen to be a different part of the business. Anyway, so it's putting it together. So I hope that answers the question. Just go and get help.
Makes sense to me. Next one is, why do you say less on facilitation more on delivery, what balance do you recommend? Skilled facilitation identifies impediments, lack of alignment that can in turn power stronger, more successful teamwork and output.
Yes. And look, I see the irony. I'm called a Scrum facilitator, and I'm saying do less facilitating. What I'm meaning there is spend less time facilitating meetings and making sure that the people are turning up. Focus on delivery. The meetings are important. It's not the only thing that Scrum Masters do. I've worked with Scrum Masters that say, no, I'm not part of delivery at all. I'm the Scrum Master. I will make sure that we have the events. I will make sure that they are productive. That's it. I don't do anything more than that. I'm not technical. I'm not accountable for delivery. What I'm saying is that you are accountable for delivery. And if you focus too much on facilitation, you're missing all the other stuff that you could be doing around coaching and mentoring and teaching and upholding Scrum, because it's being not done or to the right level that the team needs, because you're busy creating a mural board around Star Wars about retrospective. And that's great when people do that. It may not be what's needed for the team. Maybe what's needed for the team is a retrospective of why we're not talking to each other. And you could do that in a retrospective, but hey, maybe we just need to actively do something now instead of waiting to the retrospective.
It's that adaptability again. I think that has been the common theme, just don't stick to all of these rules.
There is some security and safety of doing the facilitation. However, we need to stick our necks out a little bit and do the harder stuff, the engagement with stakeholders, the engagement with fixing issues. Now, another person was talking about removing impediments. Yes, that's part of facilitation, but Scrum Masters remove impediments that the team cannot remove. They cannot remove themselves, and they own them. But they might not be the one that's doing it. But there's different conversations that you need to be having as opposed to just creating a safe area. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I think facilitating with the end in mind, when you are dealing with stakeholders, you're tapping into their issues, concerns. There was an example of a bunch of people in Scrum, and they were asked to put themselves on a low and high end of experience.
Yeah.
And it turns out the people with the high level experience put themselves in the low end. And so what is that going to do to their confidence in, engaging? So it's like you have to uncover the issues in order to really deal with the real root causes. And so, those people saying, hey, I'm pretty experienced. Let me, go in stronger and have better results. So
yeah,
it's all the purpose behind it. And then executing on that, right?
Definitely. And also, I just want to also add that just because the Scrum Master is a facilitator, they shouldn't be the only facilitator in the team. You're just talking about solving issues, impediments, having self-managing teams. It's just that there's an accountability of that facilitation. If nobody else does it, it's the Scrum Master. But hey, let's create space for other people to facilitate as well. So we create self-managing and improving teams such that they can also solve impediments at whenever. So it's that kind of thing. And it's just through coaching, through mentoring, that kind of stuff. So that's the other point as well.
Okay, thanks for getting our adrenaline going.
Cool. On a Friday night as well. Wow, this is dangerous.
I know. It's awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone so much for being here and for all of your great questions and great conversation. That's what this is about. And so really glad, and Steve, so thankful that you were here. And I hope that you'll come back and join us again sometime and
I'd love to
talk again. We really enjoyed that.
And I apologize, I totally forgot to do the end of the slide where it's all and this is how you can connect to me, and this is the Scrum facilitators and all that kind of stuff. So
we'll do it now because we're recording.
oh, okay. There's just some QR codes, that's all. With Ferris Bueller there. So that's it. So scrumfacilitators.com. If you want to link into me, I've just invented something. There's the QR code, and also evidence-based management and actual agile. If you use those QR codes, they'll take you straight to the things I was talking about. So, but I'm also the only Steve Traps, I think, on LinkedIn. So please feel free to link in. You'll get me eventually. So
Perfect. Perfect. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Friday. Thanks again, Steve. Yes, round of applause. Thanks, Paula, for reminding. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Yep. Bye.
bye.